You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right.
Hello, Matt.
Howdy, Rob.
And hello, listeners. Patrons.
What's up, what's
Welcome.
up, what's up?
Welcome back to Dungeon Master of None. We're going to be doing something fun, I think. I hope. I'm enlisting. I'm shanghaiing. I'm forcing Matt into indentured servitude, like he is a corporate peon in the far future, to help me fix my mothership.
Just woke up from cryo sleep.
I have pulled him out of his cryo chamber. I have forced him to sign a contract, and now we're gonna be doing a little bit of a mothership clinic, because longtime listeners, or not even longtime listeners, many of you will know that I've been running a mothership game for a while, and I love it and it's fun. But I am finding I'm having an opportunity to revamp, iterate, soft relaunch the game that I've been running, because I ran into some, they're not like huge problems, but I'm ever a perfectionist, and so I really feel like I could do better. And so I'm enlisting Matt in helping me figure out how to fix some of the, the fiddly little bits, especially about long-term play. In Mothership. So that's what we'll be doing today. Even if
your
you're
problem is like a good one, is you like Mothership and you want to keep playing it, and your players want to keep playing the same campaign.
That's precisely the problem. Yeah, my players like it. They like their characters. They're okay when they die, but like some of them have had some survive for multiple sessions, and advancement is a little bit wonky. And so I want to give them the opportunity to feel some both like campaign advancement, but also character advancement, and some things to sort of like persist from session to session, because for all of its strengths, and there are rules for this, but they're a little, in my opinion, undercooked. Mothership is not great for long-term play, and I think it's fixable, and I think it'd be fun to fix.
If we go back to our original review of the system, I think pretty much what we said is Mothership is a great system, a near perfect system at what it's trying to do, which is sci-fi horror on the scale of like your story is essentially one really good movie, right?
Yes.
And that may mean it's a single session. It's great at that. Or like 5 or 6 sessions of exploring one ruined planet or moon or space station. There are rules for like having a crew and a ship, but making that work like long term, that does seem to be a problem. It's not one I've personally encountered, because I have not run a Mothership campaign more than 3 sessions. I've run mini one shots, but we just like, here's your characters, let's go have fun, and we're done. And so I've not encountered this problem, but I love like the challenge of a long-term sci-fi campaign. So I'm with you.
Yeah, and Mothership is so good for convention play, for one shots, 2 shots, 3 or 4, like a short campaign is great, and the rules for the economy and advancement work really well for those 3, 4, 5, even 6 sessions. After that, I found they sort of start to fall apart, and maybe I'm bashing my head against the wall, but like I'm really fixated on this idea of a West Marches-style open table, drop in, drop out, where the players are working in a alien expanse, Firefly future, just trying to get by. Like I'm really interested in trying to model that. You're barely ahead of your debtors, keeping your rust bucket, Cowboy Bebop stuff. I love that, and I think Mothership could work for it, but it needs some tweaking.
You're essentially to make fun of you, but
make fun
I'm
of me.
still going to help you.
I deserve it.
You're essentially describing like, I wish we were playing Traveler right? We've got a rust bucket. And like,
I
you know,
love
Traveler
Traveler.
has that
Yeah.
wave system, like where you know, you're trying to stay ahead of the information about your bad deeds, your debts or something. And so you
Yes.
jump one system out from the, you know, riding the wave. So that's what you're describing. But like Mothership, just yeah. At least I don't really know like what the problem in your campaign is. I'm gonna hear from you, but like on the surface, you know, player advancement rules are pretty loose. They're mostly tied to, you know, you just have more stuff. Maybe in fact your players get worse or your characters get worse over time as
Yes,
they
that's right.
acquire more syndromes and stuff. And there's not like they're not like robust game mechanic rules for like not that
Yeah.
maybe you want these for like trade and like selling wealth and like
Yep.
moving from planet to planet. You know, there are loose rules for ships and ship construction, loose rules for hirelings. But yeah, those are some of the things I think we'll take a look at.
So Matt is right to make fun of me. And I'm doing something that I caution our listeners
Give
against.
you like one of our advice to one of our callers. You're asking to play a different game.
Exactly. And I tell our
Except
listeners
maybe
this,
you're not because you still want horror, right?
Yes, that's right.
And you love the mechanics, so you're actually not. So
Yeah.
we can work with this.
I you know, this is an admission, and if somebody wrote in, something I might say to them is, well, Traveler might work better for this than what you're trying to do. But I think I can make it work. It feels really close. So let me describe the problem.
All of
because
DM problems can be boiled down to like Sauron from the Spider-Man comics. I don't want to play Traveler. I want to hack Mothership so it is more Traveler-like. Yeah,
That's
okay.
right.
Fine.
But there isn't really a problem. So I ran this campaign or a version of this for about a year, and it went well, and everybody had fun, and there was interest in the campaign. But I constantly felt like I was out over my skis on things like advancement and economy and tying things together. So part of this is a prep issue. Is I kind of want to go back to the drawing board and build up my foundations so that I feel more comfortable running it. But there wasn't really a problem, except that I felt a little bit like the structure was kind of rickety when
Yeah.
my players had when their characters had survived for 4 or 5 sessions, uh, and I was handing out loot, and it was either too much or not enough, right? And so we can kind of get down to brass tacks here and talk about the economy. And Matt, the reason why I was thinking about this, especially recently, and we are a few weeks away from being able to talk about this ourselves, but I was looking at Stone Top, and Stone
Yeah.
Top does that, captures that advancing your characters, but also like advancing your town and building it up and building relationships. And I love that stuff. And I loved it in Kingmaker, and I love the way they do it in Stone Top. And I think it could work in a game like Mothership or something similar. I think there could be a space horror, space, dark space future version of this. And it's aspirational, something I want to
Yeah.
try to do.
And it should work in that, you know, Mothership in its bones is an OSR game. Like
Precisely.
a lot of you know, you don't have to write like complicated mechanics for a lot of things, right? You can say it's an anti-gravity belt. It functions 1 hour per recharge.
Right.
What does an anti-gravity belt do? It stops gravity. We'll figure it out in the table
That's
and we'll
right.
talk through it, right? You
Exactly.
don't need these fancy rules. So we have that going for us
Yes.
first.
And when we have talked about this type of campaign in the past, we have said that it would work pretty well in OSR because of the way that OSR works. You don't have to write a lot of rules, and the sort of the design philosophy behind it makes this easy, and it makes it collaborative with the players. So allow me to provide some like sort of like concrete examples. Okay. So something that I want to encourage, the sort of like feeling that I want to provide is right. Like the players are one bad job away from creditors coming knocking on their door, debt coming due. You know, the whole thing about Alien is that you know, the real villain is the corporation, right? Like, and in some ways it's like the corporation is trying to kill you because you're not as valuable as the horrible alien specimen. But also
Yeah.
it's literally like debt, indentured servitude, which is part of like what I love about the mothership space capitalism future that it depicts. And getting that balance right is one of the things that I found really difficult. So let's just talk through sort of like the economics of owning a space vessel in Mothership, Matt. And
Right.
this is not something that we have to like numerically decide, but I think it would be illustrative to just sort of like describe
Yeah,
the issue here.
what is going on with the system with both like how the economics work of a ship for like long-term play and like character advancement, because I think
Exactly.
that's the other thing, which maybe you don't want too much of either of those things, but like let's remind our listeners here, right?
Yeah.
So ships are big and they're expensive.
Ships are big and expensive and uh kind of kind of surprisingly fragile, right? Like there are rules for ship combat in the Shipbreaker's Toolkit. Uh, there's a lot of emphasis on if you get to this point, that's really bad. If you are firing weapons, that is a major problem. And I agree. I like that. I think that's
Yeah, that
good.
makes sense, right? If a military ship shoots at your, jack of all trades cargo vessel, yeah, you're just gonna die, right? You want to
That's right.
avoid that happening.
It's very, very bad. But so like ships values are measured in the, you know, millions of credits, right? Like it costs an unbelievable amount of money to purchase and own a ship, right? You know, tens of millions of credits, and players can expect to earn on the order of thousands to tens of thousands of credits, you know, for a job. So like, unless they're independently wealthy, players are never going to be able to sort of purchase a ship for themselves, which is, of course, fine, great. That's the
Right.
kind of
So
thing that
they're renting their ship and it's very
Yes,
expensive. It can, like what? Class 1 fuel costs 1,000 credits
right.
to refuel a ship.
Uh,
To increase your ship with something fancy like a blade of armor costs 10 million credits.
Precisely, right? Uh, Again, this is great, but like here's the issue. So there's a there's an awesome mechanic that I used a few times. If you're an owner operator, there's the bankruptcy check, right? So every few months you roll on this table. It's sort of like your ship's stat to find out like, did you turn a profit? Did you fail? How bad does it get? Uh, Here's the issue. Like everything else in Mothership, the stat is low. You're looking at 2d10 plus 10. So if you roll max, you have 1 in 3 chance of succeeding on your bankruptcy check, and that's all like well and good. But if you're constantly failing your bankruptcy checks and creditors are coming calling, that felt to me like, how do I make this feel real, but also not like I'm just like making stuff up to punish the players. You know, if you fail on this, you get, you know, 1d10 million credits more in debt. And again, that's fine. But is that meaningful, right? If the
Right.
players have already I don't know, $100 million, 100 million credits in debt to pay off their ship, and then I give them another 10 million credits in debt, does that mean anything? Does that
Yeah.
impact the campaign in a meaningful way? Because that's just like a number on top of a number. I mean, you
Right.
know, in the sort of like the mothership sense, it's building the dread of like
Right.
your massive debt. But like I found that like not that players didn't care, but like it wasn't like a meaningful impact, you know?
Right. This seems like it's crying out to me is to treat your player's ship's loan as a thing that's just like as part of the operating costs. It's like having a 30-year mortgage as an American
Exactly.
homeowner. It's like, all right, you're never really going to own your home
Right.
or
Right.
your ship. It's just it's rent you're paying. But the extra debt, right? And McCoy here in the rules notes that this is to like the worst people imaginable.
Right.
So I think this is just saying that like on a failure, you have to go in and this lets you plop down whatever pre-packaged module you have in front of the
Yeah.
players and they can't say no. So like if your default like freelancer long-term campaign thing is players are going around exploring a cluster of stars or a system or something. This is when you fail this check is the game saying or the DM saying, hey, now you have to do one of my horrible missions that I came up with that you have less choice in doing.
I think that's exactly right. I think that's probably I need to, set that up for myself, but also sort of like make that clear that like that's what this means to the players. Like if you fail, they're not gonna repossess your ship, but it means that you have to take this next contract, which may suck. Because other part of sort of the grand idea here is that every week they sit down and they have a selection of possibly more attractive contracts to choose from. And if they fail, they got they gotta take delivery to Ypsilon 14, and see what happens when they get there.
I would treat anything that's like a million credits as just a plot point shit, right?
Yeah,
Because if you give your players a million credits, maybe it's a million credits to the bank company that owns their ship. And yeah, they can spend those a million credits on their ship, but nothing else, right? Because if the players had a million credits, logically they would just retire or like buy a
right,
mansion
right.
on the surface of some hive world or something like that. But it's just like you sort of separate the money. Yeah, sure, it's money, but it's ship contract, you know, approved co-op bank loan credits that are held in some special highly secure account that maybe one day the players can break into and steal to in the campaign. But right now they're just plot chips, and it's either a million credits as a bonus or a million credits as a debt. And you roll on this table. Oh, you've got 3 debts. That could be one really big campaign or adventure, or it could be 3 really small ones. Right?
That's a really good idea, and this you addressed something else that I was kind of running into because yeah, if you give your players a million credits, they're going to be like, well, I retire. That's a million credits.
Yeah.
I can buy a space station for that or something like that, or I can buy a house on Coruscant, but I want them to spend that money on ship upgrades, right, or something like that. But if I make it clear that's just special financing, uh, some sort of credit default swap that allows them to buy
Right.
armor or weapons or thrusters or cargo space, but not something that they can sort of withdraw and use to buy, I don't know, like a smart gun or something expensive. That makes sense, and that works within the fiction of the campaign, because that was another issue, is like, how do I give rewards that allow them to make upgrades to their ship, but that they're not just going to spend on 10,000 stim packs or something like that,
Yeah.
which,
No, here's what you do is you come up with an awful acronym for whatever this financial instrument is. Corporate owned credit default actualized swap stuff. Coctas or something like that. And it's like, okay, we got a million coctas.
right, right.
Yeah, in the account.
Okay, cool. Let's. This is a great example of how I don't have to overthink
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah.
I don't need to like I don't need to finagle the like economy to like make it work. It's just
No, and if you go to the shipbreakers, toolbox and your ship manifest, essentially your ship character sheet, right?
right.
You tell the players, let's add a little circle on here for credits and debts in
Oh, nice.
cockdas. You probably take out one of the C's and just make it codas if you want it to be less crude.
I'll come up with a fun acronym.
You'll workshop it, right? And just like, how many do we have? And then instead of maybe even making these a number, I think they should be a number if they're good. That way players can spend them on the fancy ship upgrades, or even use them to put some money down on the principal. But if they're bad, they should just have a number and a person, or a number and a group.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
So
somebody
if
they owe money to, a corporation or a bank or something. That's good.
Yeah. And then I think for when you roll on this failure and you get in debt, is all you need to make yourself is a D10 table of what goes wrong and how. So in the first column, or sorry, 2D10 table. In the first column, it's uh speculation failure, markets changed in the 40 years you were in cryo sleep, goods obsolete.
Yes, that's right.
And then
somebody bought your contract, or
it
got traded or something. Yeah.
And then the other ones could be the reason why is planet no longer exists. The players need to replace the engine core, that kind of stuff. So you can roll on this table and mix and match the reasons to come up with something fresh every time they fail.
Okay, that's great.
I would say. Yeah. While we're pivoting to another specific thing, the thing that is coming to mind here is that to make this work, and when you told me about this problem, I read through my Mothership books and some other things. I did some reading, and I stumbled across a friend of the show, Justin Alexander's work on his blog on just plotting out a sort of freelance style cluster for a open table in Mothership, and you can link in the show notes.
Known that he would have had.
Should have known. He's got our back here. It's called the Tempest cluster, and so he did some work, just sort of saying, "Hey, here's a system. What's in the system? A bunch of these things."
This is so cool. Well, we'll link it in the show notes. This is neat.
Link in the show notes. And so what I'm saying here is that I think since you said, hey, I want this to be a West Marches-style game, the first thing I put in my notes is, well, you just need lots of random places and hooks that the players can explore. And so that way, when you roll on this failure table and your players are indebted to the worst people they know, you can then quickly find, where do those worst people live? And here's my table of potential worst people. And so now the players have to go to planet whatever in the whatever sector to meet with faction X, Y, or Z.
Oh, this is wild. This is from December of last year, which is after I started my campaign. But Alexander's done exactly what I did, was seed this, and he's also put the deep in here somewhere. But I'll let you listeners know on a little behind the scenes. I made a mistake when I was setting mine up, and the mistake was a very stupid and obvious one, which was that I just didn't put enough points in. I had maybe 10, which was a lot, but I ran through them too quickly, and also there was too much overlap. I needed more prep, more points, more options. So listeners, be forewarned that if you want to do what I did and not suddenly find yourself stressed more than you think you need.
And listeners, if you are trying to do this, if you're trying to West March a sci-fi game that's Firefly or Citizens, Star Citizens, Citizen Sleeper, any of the Citizens, Elite Dangerous-esque, then there are a number, in addition to Justin's great simple blog post. There are many other OSR blogs about like
Yes.
charting out star systems, but I'll also point everyone to 3 other games that you can steal, not for rules, but just for details on generating planets in weird places. Traveler, of course, Stars
Yep.
Without Number,
Yes.
and any of the Coriolis books with
Yeah.
various flavors of weirdness depending on which one you pick.
Stars Without Number is so good for this. Yeah. Listen, listeners, we are here. We give advice, and the advice that we give often comes from personal experience. And what happened here is that I got super excited about my idea, and I failed to lean on the existing resources that are available to me. And I got out over my skis, not like immediately, and there was no problem with the campaign. But I felt ultimately after about a year of running it that I had reached the end of my runway, and I needed to sort of like rebuild my foundation. I'm using a lot of metaphors here. Sorry.
Yeah. Let's get down to numbers, Rob. Approximately how many points did you have so that our listeners know, hey, that's not enough?
Like I said, when I started, I had 10, maybe like 2 to 3 more that were sketched out. Not enough. The problem was that I got too excited running it. I did not continue to build out.
Like when you go to point 8, okay, well, this has 2 more points connected to it, and I'll then build 3 more points connected to each one of those.
Part of this is knowing yourself and knowing your working rhythms, and the energies that I use for running games and for preparing games are different. And the important lesson for me was that I should have built more at the beginning so that I didn't run out too quickly.
Yeah, I'll tell our listeners 10 is not a bad number as long as every 3 to 4 sessions you build X more based on the rate. Calculate the rate of how many points, and then by 10 points you mean like 10 sites, like a space station is a site, not like
basically
10. 1 point isn't like a system with like 20 planets, right?
No.
Each planet would be a point.
Yeah. And this is loose numbers, 10-ish. Let's get back to the specific thing.
Thanks for going along that digression for me. So the other thing that we both sort of recognize, but you've actually felt, is that as players get a high score of 4 or 5, unless they want to take several years off to train skills, there's really nothing to improve. And the equipment is all just like, well, I have enough guns finally. I may have started the game with none, but now I have enough. And then any of the other loot is just like really powerful.
Yeah. So I like the rules that exist for advancement. One of the cool rules is around shore leave, right? If you take shore leave and you reduce your stress, all the stress that you convert, you can add to your saves. And this is a modest increase, but it's not nothing, and it can add up. And I think this is a very satisfying mechanic. Like it feels like you survived, you got tougher. That's reflected in your saves.
Or
the
went
problem
to therapy.
is that shore leave is expensive, and you don't always succeed on it. And this is really the only thing that improves about your character aside from loot. There is skill training, like you mentioned, Matt, but rules as written, if you want to learn a new skill, it takes a minimum of 2 years and 10,000 credits in materials. And like the credits are fine, but like when are you going to build in 2 years of downtime for a player to learn a new skill? Like it's 6 years for a master skill. Like, so the obvious solution here is to introduce some kind of, matrix brain downloading technology that allows them just like pay for a new skill. But that also runs the problem where like these are big numbers, but not that big. If you run a mission and you get paid sort of like the standard amount, you'll have thousands of credits. Like a lot of them, if you bring back loot, you can, even at black market rates, you can turn those in for thousands of credits. So like I don't have a problem with players racking up skills necessarily, but the way that it currently works, if you remove the time problem, then suddenly it's a little too easy. So I have
Sure.
not.
Okay.
What I did for this was that I kind of let them pay for a new skill every 3 sessions or so. But the problem was that was just like a ton of bookkeeping, and also like wasn't particularly satisfying either. So these are sort of like two related problems, right? Like the saves going up and the adding new skills. Like these are good sinks for credits, and
Wait,
also
what are so remind me of the rules. How do your saves go
sorry.
up?
Let me for listeners and for Matt.
Yeah.
Let me describe how this works because it's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. This is shore leave. How do I take shore leave? Pay the shore leave costs. Every port charges a different amount for shore leave based on the different amenities and activities it has to offer. So it ranges from S class to X class,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, we'll it goes from 1d5 to basically maximum, how much stress you can convert to saves. And the costs associated are also commensurate. So for like a C class, it's 2d10 times 100 credits. For S class, it's 2d10 times 100,000 credits, right?
Right.
So this also becomes economically not so viable. The way that it works is you
But
make
in a long-term campaign, the player can make the decision of we're going to a B class as opposed to an S class or
precisely.
something like
Once you have paid your shore leave costs, you make a sanity save. If you succeed, you convert some of your stress into improved saves. This is where the stress converted table comes in. If it's a critical success, you convert the maximum amount of stress allowed into improved saves. If you fail, you don't convert any stress. You do remove it, but you don't convert any of it. So you'll make one of these saves once a session, or basically at the end of a session. And that's fine. But as I have just described, it's expensive. It has a pretty good chance of not succeeding, especially if your sanity save is bad. And, you know, if this is a short term campaign where you know your player character is going to get eaten by a xenomorph, you know, after on average every 3 to 4 sessions, that's fine. It plays into the fiction. But if you want your PC to persist and you're going to attach them, even if you're okay with them suffering some consequences, it kind of feels bad to biff this roll. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think looking at the table and stuff, because you are still rolling uh, a 2d10 to 1d5 number. So like, hey, you can go to shore leave and roll a 1 on your
Right.
stress converted, right? And you convert 1 stress.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's, I think, still useful enough. If you want a longer term campaign where characters do not spiral into death despite all of their nicer equipment, um, uh, is there a reason why you couldn't, for your long-term campaign, just skip the sanity save and go straight to the stress converted save? Because if players, they go to an X class and they spent, 10,000 credits or whatever, uh and they roll a 2 on their 2d10, right? Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
They convert to stress. They're still stress next adventure. You still get that like um downtime problem, and then they might get lucky. It's a very it's rolling hit points in a
Yeah.
OSR D&D game.
I think you're right. I think there's no reason that this can't just, like, you don't need the sanity save. You don't need the chance for failure. The chance for failure is it's expensive, and also you only potentially reduce one stress. So I think the easy solution here is just to remove the sanity save.
Yeah, just treat it like players always roll a success on the sanity save, and then roll their stress converted. Yeah, sometimes they'll roll enough stress converted to be topped up back to 0 stress, and get to add some points to their saves and distribute those as they like. And then sometimes they're gonna leave this adventure like, well, I'm almost as stressed as I was at the end of the last adventure. That's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's good. I think that's simple.
But that
And
removes the chosen like death spiral of
well, and it also removes the null option, which I don't. I guess it's not null. I guess it's if you fail, you get stress. So it's not like nothing happens. We've discussed this before. This is what I love about Mothership. There is no nothing happens option. However, it does remove the things get significantly worse. You will at least convert 1 stress to a save. You will be out some money. The grind of trying to survive churns onward, but you at least feel like you're making some progress. You're staying
if you
one
really
step ahead of death, maybe.
if you want to keep the feeling but change the mechanics so that players are more likely to have fun in a long-term campaign, you can always turn you can keep the sanity save, treat any result as a success. A critical success is still a critical success where you get like maximum on the dice. But instead of failure is not converting stress, it's like a weird or bad thing happens to you. Maybe you give the players, you pull up a D10 table of hooks of like you have a weird experience, you make an enemy, you piss someone off. If you're into it, it could be a mental health malfunction.
This is how it works in Shadow Dark and Blades in the Dark for downtime. Like failing those rolls means you consult a table of something happens. You make an enemy or you get in trouble or something like that. So that's a good idea. Maybe if you fail, then you know you leave a credit sheet in the bar, or you get in a fight with somebody and um you're 86th from the local tavern at this space station, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That is also a good option. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is rewrite failure and critical failure to read. Convert some of your stress into improved saves. Whatever extra is add to minimum. In addition, you roll on the failure chart or something, or the DM will roll on, the warden will roll on the failure chart for you, and you'll write something into your character sheet, like a new trait, a new enemy, a new thing that happened.
Okay. That's cool. That's good.
Okay. So there's this, but yeah, back to I think so that's how our skills go, or our saves go up, and that's
Right.
still useful. I don't think as long as the players are getting their saves to go up just a little bit on average every time, they should be happy. The skill stuff is, I think, a little more interesting in that I think you can treat sort of skills as I have 2 options for you. One I think is really interesting. One is I think will be fine but acceptable. Is pick the fine but acceptable one is pick a number of high scores. Right, this is the point a player gets every time they survive a session of the game. At a number 3, 5, and multiples thereof, players can either train a new basic skill, and you should encourage them to pick one that makes sense. Oh, I'm learning from so and so at our table, or I picked up that interesting book on biology. Maybe I have biology skills now. Okay, it's every 3 or 5 sessions. Maybe you can, if you don't pick one, you can save it, and it takes 2 multiples to get a master or expert skill. The more interesting option could be the sort of stars and wishes at the end of the match. or the
Ooh, I like
match,
this.
the session is whoever the, when people go around and like, hey, who's the MVP? What was the most interesting bit of role playing and decision making or fun tactics that someone did? Give it to that person and then let them pick a skill with that.
Ooh, I like that.
Whoever that player was, and then just make it. You must pick a skill that's related to that character's stuff, and be like, hey, yeah, you did negotiate with those people. You can. There's not a
You
negotiate skill in
well,
this,
sure,
so
but you
by
picked up a
yeah,
pipe and you beat the alien symbiote to death with it. Let's give you hand to hand combat. Like
yeah.
you you put yourself on the line for that. That's a great idea. We've talked about games that have this built in. Burning Wheel is one. Realis is one. This is a fun thing to do, and I think could probably be hacked into this pretty easily. Another thing that I experimented with was, and I'm sorry, I misrepresented Mothership a little bit. The way that it's described in the book is skill training takes place like over the course of a campaign as they are adventuring. You don't have to like take 2 years off to do it. And if you're using, I don't know, realistic space travel times, right? Like if it takes 6 months to get from Earth to Mars, then in the course of regular play, you might have in-game time to train relatively frequently. But I did find that to be like a lot of bookkeeping, a lot of space math for me to be like, I don't know, it takes 3 months to get from this space
No,
station
no.
to the planet.
I've got it, Rob. Just turn real world time into in game time. I know this is anti OSR,
Ah,
but
okay.
it really works. Is let's say you want to buy a basic skill, that's a clock of 4. If you can pay for the training equipment and materials, 10,000 credits or whatever, players get to write down on their character sheet a 4-section clock that says, basic athletics training 4, and at the end of every session after they purchased it, they get to mark one of those. Once it's all full and they take shore leave, then they now have that skill.
Okay,
And it
that's
doesn't
good.
matter how many sessions, how much real world time has passed. Was it 6 months? Was it 10 years? Did all 4 of those sessions happen in one haunted space station? It doesn't matter. You've decided at your table you're not going to worry about it.
Okay.
Because enough real world time has passed that, our character's been working on it, and then to complete it, you just have to take your shore leave.
Okay. That's good. I like that. So what I'll ultimately end up doing will probably be some combination of these things, but already I feel like this makes more sense. Um, let's talk briefly
Well,
about. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Uh, um, I wanted to also talk about. So, I mean, this is an OSR game, so like, acquire. Your character is not a lot, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But if you as the warden have created this like little sector map, then they can have a place they can be from or have friends there, and you can expand that. But essentially, like your saves and even your skills are really not that important because you don't want to roll these checks, right?
Right.
They're bad.
You're
You
trying to
want to
avoid rolling in general.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to figure things out with logic and your stuff. No, 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 no. I'm not making a check to open this. I have a crowbar,
That's right. I
Gordon.
have a
I don't need a
tool
track.
that will let
We're
me do
coming up
this.
with a
Yeah.
plan. We're working together. We're thinking. I'm not rolling a check. And so
Yeah.
like the stuff that the players have both on their ship and on their person is really important. But Rob has mentioned that like, the stuff list is all really useful tools, weapons, and then it immediately jumps to like god mode armor or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Have you looked at from Sean McCoy and others the rules for slicks and cyberware in a pound of flesh?
I recently purchased this at my friendly local gaming store because I was like, I think this might have some solutions for me, and I think it does. I think this solves some of my problems because a pound of flesh, which I have not read in as much detail as I would like, but has rules for augmentations and various expensive doohickeys that you can install in your person or spend money on that provide a money sink, but also a form of player advancement.
It also has, rules for Prospero's Dream, which is essentially a space station that you will absolutely want to plop down in your long-term campaign to be a spot.
Yes.
And I think the good thing about the rules for cyberware is there are many things at a cost in that like mid-range of, well, this isn't a $5 flashlight that you really wish you had in Adventure 2 because you didn't have one. But now that you had downtime and money and bought a lot of the basic stuff you have, but it's also, while there are many expensive cyberware and slick modules, there are many in that like sweet, couple thousand credit range.
Yeah.
So I think the letting players get cyberware, it's also like a really fun marker of character growth that, well, I have a prosthetic hand that turns into a gun.
Yeah. There's some really cool things in here. I think Pound of Flesh and Prospero's Dream is a great space station. I was debating on this, and I might just plop it down and be like, "This is your home base." They'll leave it frequently, but I don't need to reinvent the wheel. Another lesson for you listeners: don't be like me. You don't have to build anything from scratch. Just use what you've got. The the cyberware, the slicks, these are great tools. These are good options for character advancement. Pound of Flesh also has re-sleeving, right? Like you can get put back in a clone body or something like that.
I think so. I also remembering it having a bunch of like tables for like bars and restaurants and people and stuff. So that's good.
So here's another thing that I sort of have to tweak, and I think there's probably like a pretty easy answer for this, but we love the panic checks. We love the panic table. This is sort of in my opinion, the engine that drives Mothership and makes it fun and interesting. One of the many outcomes that can come from rolling on the panic table, which I love to do, is you can gain a condition. And conditions are fun, sort of. They're things like nightmares. Gain a new condition. Sleep is difficult. Gain disadvantage on rest saves. Or coward condition. You must make a fear save to engage in violence. Otherwise, you flee. So this is interesting and all, especially in the session when you acquire the condition. As they build up over the course of a character's life, what I have found is that they are hard to keep track of, right? Because you have to, for a lot of them, you have to remember specific conditions on which you roll certain things, and they do become frustrating and burdensome. Like I had players who were honestly happy to be killed because they were tired of the conditions that were making it very difficult to play their characters. Now,
seems like that's by design. Yes,
it is by design. The thing is, you can remove conditions. There are rules for it, but rules as written, cognitive defragmentation costs 100,000 credits, right? Which is, again, I think this is by design meant to be inaccessible to most players. But I feel like my goal here is not to like allow players or encourage players to keep the same PC for the entire campaign necessarily, not without cost, right? My goal is to I think extend the life of each PC, right? If I want them to like survive a few sessions longer, but have that be more rewarding, like in my mind, it's great if like a player survives long enough that their like minimum stress is so high that they're starting every adventure like already at a failure state or almost there.
Right.
But like I don't want it to be like unfun, right? I don't want them to be basically like walking liabilities. I want it to be like a little bit harder every time. And that
Here
was sort of like one of the balance things that I was having trouble getting right because of these conditions.
Here's my initial thought when you brought up conditions, which is I went to the beautiful graphic design of the character sheet, and conditions is
Yeah.
kind of a single box. It's big
Yeah.
enough that you could write really small a bunch of conditions, but I would just, for like your homebrew campaign, is just say, hey, this condition is one slot. And so when you roll on the panic table and you get a condition, but you already have one, it replaces your old condition with a new condition, which gives players some variety of role playing. Now, you could incur an extra cost. Maybe your minimum stress goes up every time your condition gets swapped. Maybe that's too burdensome. You don't want to worry about that. But the simple rule is you have max one condition at any time. If you gain a new psychosis, it replaces your old, because that's how the brain works. But no, that's how this game works.
I think that's a really good idea, Matt. That's very smart. I think that works. And then yeah, if you replace a condition, I'll just say increase your minimum stress by 1, but like it rolls over your old one. Well, that's good. That means that's just like one less thing to keep track of, and everybody can probably remember their one condition or have it on their
Everyone
sheet.
can remember their one condition. I would recommend, because this is, I think, not exactly a failure of design, but like one of the hard parts of Mothership is one of the great parts of Mothership is players don't like need to frequently reference the rule book.
Yes,
It's amazing. Everything is pretty much
everything's
there
on
your character.
sheet. Yes,
But conditions like, deflated or whatever, like it's not complicated. It's like you roll a panic check, or you gain a stress when someone else rolls a panic check, or something like that.
Yeah.
But you do have to write text down. So if I was you, I would print out little business card size pieces of paper
Ooh, that's
with
a good
all, because there's only like 5 or 6 conditions, and
Yeah.
keep a stack of them in a chip clip, and then just hand them out to the players to paper clip to their character sheet current condition, or so they can read the text and copy it exactly to their rules.
That's great. You know,
You could
this
even put a
remi-
little emoji or a thing on there to really
Emoji's a good idea.
remind them, oh yeah, I'm deflated.
This reminds me that the one thing I'd like to do to make me feel like a more competent and organized GM is to do exactly what you're describing, but with equipment. So I can hand out little like cards that say stim pack or battle dress or whatever. Not that that's necessary, but again, equipment is one thing that you have to write down and maybe describe on your character sheet.
Oh
which,
yeah.
which is fine, but everything else is so simple, and it's just like one thing that you kind of gotta write down.
Rob, it's already been done for you.
Of course it has.
There
Of
is
course it has.
on smamwise.itch.io. There's a weapon and gear cyberware, even from Pound of Flesh, stat block editor and creator. It's got all the things in the open source rules and a description. It will print out, and you can custom edit it and print it. Save as PDF, and then boom, you can print it. It also looks
Listeners.
like someone has sold a PDF with cards that you can then fill out with text
Ooh.
and print.
That'd be good too. Listeners,
Because
don't be like
I ran
me.
into this when I was running like a one shot. It was like, oh yeah, you've picked up like a laser cutter, and they're like, oh, what can it do? Well, I'm like, it can do what a laser cutter does, even though there's like a little description. Because it was a one shot and I didn't have time. But yeah, it would have been so satisfying if I had a laser cutter card to hand to the player.
And this is OSR, so like it's by design not supposed to have a lot of rules. So theoretically, your players should be able to write down laser cutter or stim pack or whatever, and they don't need any stats. But in practice,
Yeah,
you do kind of need like a little description of what a thing does. Just not every player
Well,
is.
it makes the
OSR
game more
savvy.
fun. Like
Yeah.
a rebreather, what does it do? It's a rebreather. We all know what it means, but the bit of text on there is that it has a 20-minute tank unless you have a bigger tank, and that's interesting. Oh, okay, I can
That
go
is
into the room
interesting.
filled with toxic gas. How long? 20 minutes. Uh-oh. Got to make some
Exactly.
choices. Yeah.
That's the good stuff. Matt, I
I
thought
just
of something.
also think with the gear and stuff is that, especially if you're playing a campaign where your characters are freelancers and they have a ship, is you should really lean into the hireling, the contractor rules.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
get your players lots of contractors, make them interesting, make them care
Something
about
that
them,
I did
kill
feel good
them.
about, and I is this, this is one of my strengths as a GM. I had tons of contractors, tons of replaceable NPCs with names that were funny to me, to fill in, whenever they needed a marine or a pilot or whatever. But I did need more, and I thought of something after our brief digression. It wasn't that I didn't have enough points. I did need more, but what I really needed was more connections. If my sort of like main error, if there was one, was that I didn't build enough connections between the points that I had, and then I started running into problems making it all sort of like fit together. So
Right.
that's my like big takeaway and lesson.
Every point should have several connections to every adjacent point, plus one or two connections to non-adjacent points, plus rumors about
Right.
points even farther away.
Okay. Matt, I think this really like this.
Oh, sorry. One last thing. I
Sure, go
can't
ahead.
remember if I'm taking this from Justin Alexander's blog or from something else, but one great thing about space is that it's mostly empty, but like systems are filled with all kinds of things. And where like crazy thing that like in in our lifetimes, we've learned that most stars, almost all stars, have like a bunch of shit around them.
Yes.
I
a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
remember when I was a kid, they're like, well, we don't know if any stars have planets. We think some of them probably do. Ours does. And now we know, like almost all the stars that we've been able to measure
They've almost
have
all
some
got
kind of
planets,
shit.
like a bunch of them.
Yeah. And so the nice thing about your like points is that they're already, for a game master, they're already grouped for you. You have a cluster here, and then if you want to go to a cluster of points over there, well, you got to go through a jump gate or you got to go into cryo sleep for 40 years.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Okay. This was very helpful. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
I have.
You're welcome.
This addresses most of the things that I was concerned about. There's
You were also a little concerned about combat. And
Yeah. Sort of. Well, let me ask you a question. Sorry, this is actually not about the campaign itself, and this isn't necessarily an issue with a long-term Mothership campaign, but it is something that I went back and forth on. So I'm actually not sure what the final ruling is on this, but my understanding is that you don't roll a hit for horrors, right? They just
Yeah.
straight up do damage. And I did this wrong for my first few sessions because I'm just so used to rolling, because there is like a combat stat on almost everything, but I think you're actually not even supposed to roll it unless something strange is happening. They just straight up do damage to your players. And does that sound right to you? Does that make sense? Because I think that's the
am
better way to run it.
trying
It
to
is
remember my
much more
last my last fight. I remember players have to roll to hit, right?
Players
They
do have to roll to
roll
hit. Yes.
a combat check.
The reason why I wrote down combat is not because anything specific was wrong, but because I wasn't ever quite sure if it was the right balance, the right feel,
Rob,
And
horrors
this,
do have a combat stat.
they do
I
have a
just flipped
combat
open to
stat.
one.
Yes,
Ghouls,
that's what. Yeah, they do.
combat 40, bite 2d10 damage. So to me, that would mean the ghoul rolls a d100 and hits 45%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't run it the other way. And actually, that would be, I think, fine for a one shot. But if you want to do a long term campaign, having your horrors roll a combat check. Yeah, this is bringing something back. Last time I ran a one shot, a horror, like essentially, I got really unlucky. Like 3 rounds in a row, a horror like missed what it was trying to do.
Yeah.
And the players are like, oh, well, that was easy. And they, of course, took the long lesson from that, even though I was like, wow, I'm super unlucky. And then they tried to fight another thing and 2 people died, or 2 characters died. No people.
Yeah. This was the thing that happened to me is I had an early session where both the player and the horror, which was an android gone mad, were just whiffing their rolls over and over again. And, I described it as a, pitched gunfight, but in practice it was you roll and miss, she rolls and misses, that kind of thing. And that felt unsatisfying to be quite honest.
Here's a way to an old OSR trick is that if you roll the combat for the horror and it misses, tell the players you escaped. What do you do to escape? Like where do I move over here? And like you can even give them a little bonus to say, hey, I climbed the ladder to get out of its reach. Okay, you're up on the thing now. That kind of stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say make sure to roll for your monsters. That would make combat a little less deadly. And also encourage your players to use their contractors to fight.
Yeah, that's right. Encourage your players to use your meat shields as meat shields. I also want to mention that there are some difficulty setting rules in the Warden's Operation Manual that kind of address what we've been talking about, but they were still not quite what I was looking for, but I may borrow some of those.
Which section are you talking about?
This is on page 52, customizing your campaign. Which are some of these are
Yes.
close to what we talked about.
Yeah. 52.1. Thank you, Sean McCoy, for
thank you.
All of the
I don't want any
I love
of this...
how everything is labeled. So even though this is a game where you don't need to reference these things,
it's very easy to reference.
Yeah.
I don't want any of this yapping to sound like Sean McCoy has not actually thought of this, because he has. I just didn't quite find those solutions to work for the precise type of campaign I was running. Mothership is, I still maintain, one of the best designed games out there, especially given the relatively compact rule books. But there was a few things that were kind of fuzzy. But I feel pretty good. Feel pretty good about them.
Right. I mean, the ablative wounds option is just one other way to make combat less lethal.
Yes.
Like everyone gets a freebie, right? One
one
chance
free,
to get away with just a surface scratch that reset after 30 minutes, which it's fun. It creates new opportunities for characters to be like, can we get away for a little while to recover our ablative wound?
And this is like a sliding scale, right? Like, do you want this to be Alien, where if you are in contact with the xenomorph, you're dead or seriously injured? Or do you want it to be Aliens, where maybe you can have a brief encounter with some xenomorphs and come off, possibly not dead? And
for your campaign, I love the ablative wounds thing.
Me too.
And the way I would run it is just give everyone a poker chip and be like, this is your guard. This is your reaction. This represents your first wound. Remember, you may take more than one wound from an attack, so you could lose this and some actual health. But you have this chip to give me the first time I take off a wound, and you'll get it back if you ever get away for 30 minutes.
If you survive, yeah. Okay, this feels good. I'm gonna spend a
Oh,
little
I have
time.
I have one more
give me-
thing is
give me one
because
more.
maybe it was before we started recording or earlier in the episode. You're like, hey, ships are really really fragile.
Oh yeah.
For a long-term campaign for wardens out there, I would recommend leaning on the advice in the rulebook about combat, which says most people would rather talk than fight. And I think that applies to $1 million spaceships.
Oh, for
Like,
sure.
no one wants to blow up your spaceship. What they do want to do is figure out what you're doing. And then if you're doing something they don't want, they want to take away your ship. So,
Yeah.
encourage, resolve ship to ship combats as disabling engines or catching you to board you. Think, right, this is not the Battle of Trafalgar. Even the Battle of Trafalgar, most of the ships, didn't sink; they were captured, right? But this is like pirate style. Like, hey, we're not sinking your ship. We're disabling its rudder. We're taking its masts, and then we're taking your stuff.
Yeah.
Which, of course,
yes.
gives the players a chance to pull some shenanigans.
That's absolutely, yeah. That's great advice. No one's going to be firing their guns unless something has gone really wrong because ammunition is expensive and ships are expensive and you don't want to be doing that.
The only ships that should ever fight each other are two warships.
Right.
Because if there's a warship and your player's ship, the warship is just going to say, hey, pull the fuck over.
That's right. they're gonna point their much larger guns at you and they're going to say, stop. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Well, this was a fun clinic. Patron listeners, if you have, as we said, a lot of this, like running a long-term mothership campaign is building out cool clusters. We listed 3 resources. If you have other resources out there for building cool space things, either from the mothership community or, I don't know, some other system, hit us up with them. Post it in the comments below. Send us an email.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. And as always, keep rolling them dice.
You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. Pac Div. You never know if you don't roll